Well, welcome to this edition of Experts at EWU. You know, I like doing this series because, number one, I'm getting to learn a lot about EWU and all of their programs. But most importantly, I walk away every time impressed with the staff that they have out there that are teaching students and all of that. And so, looking forward to having let's get it right now, okay? Dr. Shari Clarke and then Kim Davis. How are you ladies today?
Doing well,
We're
thank
good.
You surviving the day?
you. Yes.
We are.
Yeah, a chance to take your mask off a little
Yeah,
bit.
right.
Yeah. What's it like today with moving to online teaching and all of that? How's your department working with that? Because that's when we all go to college or university, we want that interaction with the professor. We want it with other students and all that. And in some ways, they're not getting that.
Exactly right. I really miss the human contact.
Yes.
The day-to-day interactions you have with your colleagues, the interactions you have with students, just seeing people and saying, hi, how's your day?
Right.
All of that's kind of gone right now.
Did we really realize how much we'd ever miss that, though?
I don't think so.
No.
But we learned a few things along the way too about accessibility. So
Yes.
having everything be via Zoom, I think that we know that even when we're in person that we want to offer that level of accessibility to our students and faculty and staff. So we'll be offering all of our trainings not only in person, but also they'll be available via Zoom
Yeah.
at the same time. So
I remember when Vinny was telling me a year ago, January, about this new thing, Zoom, that was coming, and I think it was out then and so forth. And okay, that's interesting. At some point, I need to learn it. Well, like 60 days later, I'm using it. Welcome to the world change. And I think we'd be hard pressed to find people who haven't.
In some ways, it's opened up really new audiences for us.
Right.
Okay.
Because more and more people are reaching out and asking for training and development from our office. People are wanting us to help them do diversity strategic plans. So new folks are coming in because of Zoom, which makes it kind of nice. But I still miss the human interaction.
Yeah.
It's
I don't know
tough.
how many people, just in the last, couple of weeks, we've been able to go into restaurants and so forth. I mean, even to have a cup of coffee with somebody, you had to be outside for a while or whatever, right? And some days that was not the most ideal situation,
True.
And, but how many people are saying, yes, let's have coffee or let's have lunch. I think I've got 3 lunches this week, okay?
Yeah.
And everybody's raring to go. And I think it'll be fun. Maybe, Doctor, let's talk about what is the department that you chair, and what areas do you cover?
We are the Office for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion.
Okay.
And what's beautiful about our office is we span the entire spectrum of the university. We work with faculty, staff, students, and unique to our office, we also have a community connection.
Okay.
We feel very strongly you cannot do diversity effectively in a silo. So
Yeah.
we're very engaged with the multicultural community, diverse communities, the women's communities, as well as what's happening on a campus. And our whole purpose is to make sure our campus is serving every student equitably, and to make sure that students have an opportunity to interact with diverse faculty. You have a curriculum that's inclusive. So we are that office that's overseeing diversity in every aspect of the university.
Yeah. And as I mentioned, we've had Scott Finney on, and absolutely, we had the pleasure of, this was before COVID hit the rails, to watch him interact with students in the theater there, and I walked away going, I want to go back to school, and then we well, actually, he's promised when things are back to normal that I can come out and watch and participate. And I'm really looking forward to that. In the meantime, we've had him in a couple of times just because I think our audience and I want to learn some things. And we don't learn things in a vacuum. We've got to have conversations, and that's what we try to do. There's been kind of an active year. I'm going to go back to
Very.
May and all of the things that happened then. But there was something just the other day at Eastern and in Cheney. Let's talk about that for a second and fill me in what happened. And I know I've had the pleasure in the past of interviewing Dr. May Is it?
Our president?
Yeah,
Yes.
our interim president out there. We'd had to do it remotely during COVID and so forth. So I know who he is and all that. And he came out pretty strong the other day in
He
a
did.
statement. So what happened? And then how are things going? What's the reaction you're getting? And I'm thinking from the public as well as students, either one of you or both.
What happened was one of our student athletes who lives in a property off campus.
Okay.
There were racist graffiti written on his door, and they had written the N-word, and then they scratched it out. And then, as far as we can tell, there was also a vehicle that received some form of vandalism.
Yeah.
And it happened to both our student athlete and his roommate. So the president, and he has been phenomenal in strongly stating what the university needs to be like and showing his support for all of our students, but really not taking any negativity around these really horrific things. No room, no place for racism on the Eastern Washington University campus. And he spoke to that extraordinarily eloquently, and also asked folks to take a stand, take a side.
Yeah.
Do you
Pick
believe
a
in
side.
this or
Yep.
do you not?
Yeah.
And we thought that was a really strong message, and it spoke strongly to the community, to the
Yeah.
EWU community, as well as the broader community.
Right.
And I think Dr. May is the first president that I've seen that will take a strong stance. And I think that's important. A lot of people are worried about, I don't want to be offensive to this group or that group. And so they take a lukewarm stance on these issues.
A safe.
Yeah.
Yes.
And so I was really, really impressed. The feedback I've seen all over social media, person after
great.
person talking about
good.
how proud they are that our university is taking a stance like this coming from the president. And yeah, we were really happy because the thing that people don't realize is the things that are happening in the community and throughout the country affect our students on a very deep level.
Yeah.
They're students who are trying to get through school with a lot of challenges already.
Right,
And
right.
then things like this shake their safety, shake their feeling of security. And so to have a president say, choose a side.
Yeah.
I was pretty wowed by it too.
That's great.
We were
That's
very,
great.
very impressed. And everything happened, as far as we could tell, last year after the George Floyd murder.
Right.
It was as though a spotlight was placed on these issues of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Right.
And the spotlight has not dimmed.
Yeah.
Right.
Every single month, there's been something else that's been a focus. This past week, we had the Asian individuals who were murdered. So that impacts us. Whatever's happening nationally impacts our students.
Why the Asian issue that I've been seeing on TV and so forth, is that coming from the China virus, do you think? Or is it coming, where's it? I don't know. I'm asking.
I think that helped to fuel it.
Okay.
Whenever you put a group of people with a really nasty pandemic, which has no bearing whatsoever. But there is a lot of history behind that,
Okay.
and the dehumanization of Asians and the dehumanization of Asian women. There's been a long history.
Okay.
And so now we're seeing this come to the fore, and people are speaking up. We're tired of this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a statement that said, you love our food, you need to love us
Yes.
as people, which I thought was really,
Interesting.
really
Okay.
a strong statement about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
Well, and I think in our country too, there's always been treating people of Asian American background as other, that, making assumptions about where they're from when, they're multi-generational in our own country. So we see that this is nothing new. It has been perpetuated by COVID and the use of terms like
Right.
the China virus, which is completely inappropriate.
Right.
Very
And if you're a history buff at all, and I am a bit, you look back to even the newspapers following December 7th, 1941, which was
Right.
before I was
Right.
born. The Japs,
Right.
okay?
Oh, yeah.
Even those who should know better, okay? That's what they were saying. And you start to think about that. I grew up in Southern California and have driven by and seen Manzanar, I think it is, that's down there. I'm headed down there in a couple of months and hope to see it again and so forth. We imprisoned Japanese people.
We had
Oh,
those
yeah.
internment camps
Yeah, and
right
it's gonna-
here in our own
Yeah,
country.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I wish I had known when he was still alive, Ed Tsutakawa, who, as a young person, was imprisoned in a I'm going to call it a concentration camp because I don't know what else you can really call it, and up here in the Northwest, and he developed his painting skills and so forth. And I didn't realize that was the history that he has. He was very involved with the program out at I want to call it Fort Wright. I don't think we're supposed
Oh, I
to
know
call
what you're talking about.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah,
Yeah.
and
can't
so
remember
forth.
the name of the place.
And he passed away a few years ago, and I knew him for years, but didn't know of that history. I wish I had known. I wanted to ask questions. I think we all want to ask questions.
Kim brings up a really good point, though, when we talk about othering. And we're very good as a country at making people who don't fit the norm
Yeah,
or the everyday expectation as different.
yeah,
And then we find ways to keep them apart and keep them separated.
Yeah.
And that's extremely dangerous for our country.
yeah, yeah. Where do we go from here to make things better? How can we bring people together? I've always thought I was a good person in terms of character matters. Now, I cannot avoid knowing that you're a Black American, okay? That's kind of obvious, okay? But I've been watching and listening to you since I met you just a few minutes ago about your character and the things you've said here. That tells me a lot about you.
Right. You
How
have
do
to
we
know the
get to that
individual.
point where the average citizen is out there wanting to come in and see a Scott Finney do his program and some other things? Do we need to be inviting maybe the community in a little bit more?
We do, and that's one of the
Okay.
reasons why we talked about the importance of being very much a part of the community.
Right.
But I think we need to start educating our youth.
Yes.
And we need to start very, very young so that our students grow up with an understanding that people are going to be different from them, but they are still worth your respect.
Yes.
And that there's room and place for all of us in this society.
Yeah.
And we don't judge people based on the color of their skin.
Right.
Now, you certainly could see that I'm African American. You
Right.
could see that I'm a curvy girl. But what you couldn't see about me is the fact that I have Native American ancestors and Scandinavian and Irish and African. You don't get to really know an entire person until you do that. You make those
Right.
connections
Right.
and you have those exchanges and conversations. So my thinking is always we have got to start so much earlier in
Yeah.
educating our youth with a curriculum where they get to know people different from themselves.
Right.
Starting with Dr. King, that's a good place to start, but there's so much more than that
Yeah.
that's about Black history.
Right.
And to tell the truth.
Tell truthful stories.
Right. So
Yeah.
we I remember going through the K through 12 system and not having a real understanding of our history as a country.
Right.
We're so ashamed of the mistakes we've made along the way that we want to hide them, cover them, not bring them to light. But to be honest, that's what helps us to grow.
Yeah. And when you bring up and talk about history, I know enough to know. There's a lot of discussion about blacks and slaves being three-fifths of a person and all of that. But I don't know how many people realize that that was the only way the Constitution could be passed because of those who were objecting. And so things don't happen overnight. I've got a friend who literally walked from Iran over the mountains to Turkey. He's now, and his family is citizen here, and this is his country now. And he said, well, Kent, let's not forget, we're only 250 some years basically in the United States. I come from a country that's 2,500, and we still don't have it right over there. And I think sometimes you have to look at that perspective that, no, we haven't done a lot of things right, but let's not hold us to all of the mistakes from the past. Let's learn from them and move forward. And so is that part of what you're trying to do with students out at Eastern?
Definitely. We want you to know the history. We want you to know
Yeah.
traditions of people who are different from yourself. But it's also about all of us coming together and moving forward
Yes.
as humans,
Yes.
as a part of this country,
But
or
there's so
part of
many
the
out there
world,
that
as a
don't want to
global
move
citizen.
forward. How do we get some of them on both sides of the spectrum? Because I think about 80% of us all agree on the same basic principles. There's that 10% and 10% on the fringes out there. They get all the press and they yell the loudest and whatever it is. But how do we get to that center that we can find out that we really do agree on a lot of things?
I think a lot of it has to do with fear. And it's
Okay.
fear of the unknown.
Because I don't know you.
Because you don't know me, and what you know about me are stereotypes.
Yes.
Right.
And you have this fear that's just not based on any truth. It's grounded in an unreality. So once again, it's opportunities to connect and get to know each other that make all the difference.
How do we do that out in the community? I can see how we can do that in a controlled environment on a campus and through Zoom and in your classes and students and so forth. How do we do that out in the community?
We have to put ourselves out there. I think part of, calling people into action.
Okay.
One of the biggest things is that the dominant culture, which, we're talking about majority white in Spokane.
Yes.
We need the people who really want equity. If that's truly what you want, what are you doing to make equity happen? We need the dominant culture to come in and help us get to where we need to be. And so a lot of people are pretty standoffish about, well, I don't know what I can do to help. And there are so many things. Go check out our website, the Office for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion website. There are anti-racism resources. There are all kinds
Okay.
of things that the community can do to come around people who are in marginalized identities or who are not given true equity. And so what we're asking is, Spokane community, come forward, help us. Like, we want you in. We're calling you into action with us.
Yeah.
And we see so many organizations in the community that are doing just that.
Good.
We
Good.
see people who represent city council. Councilwoman Betsy Wilkerson is very engaged. We have the Black Lens that invites us to learn about a different
yes.
culture. NAACP, the Hispanic Business Professional Association, the Carl Maxey Center, so many organizations that are inviting you in, inviting you to come and be a part of what we do. Come and learn and grow with us. That's what we're asking people to do, and certainly that's what we do at EWU.
How do you make it easy for as white a white guy as I can be, okay? I mean, I'm not going to get away from that, okay? How do you reach me? How do you reach out to me to come to some of those kinds of things? Number one, the introvert in me, and there's a lot of that, okay? I'm going to feel out of place. Right? Am I going to feel out of place coming to?
I don't think you are. I think you're going to
Okay.
be extremely welcomed
Okay.
in a warm and welcoming environment. And I also think if you're in a classroom, not just Africana studies, but I'm thinking American Indian studies,
Yes.
Chicanic studies, women and gender studies, all of the different areas that we have are going to welcome you.
Okay.
There's no
See, I need
reason
to
not
hear
to
that,
be.
and I think there are a lot of people watching that need to hear that.
Well, diversity is about all of us.
Yeah.
And I think those of us who are really diverse individuals will make sure that you're aware of that.
Okay.
There's place and space for everybody to be involved and for this learning to
Yeah.
occur, which will, of course, result in bringing us closer together with a better understanding of one another.
I'm going to be honest with you. I look back at my high school years and my college years. I was not the greatest student. I was the introvert. Okay. Yeah, here I am doing this, right? Life changes. I have never wanted to learn more as I have in the last 4 or 5 years. And I think we all need to tackle that. Now, sometimes things get in the way of maybe not finishing our college
Right.
degree. And back in high school, I had other interests and so forth, and so on. But I hope none of us stop learning. I have learned so much, and honestly, it's from people like you coming in and talking. I as I mentioned with Scott, I just learned so much, and then we had a honest conversation across in those days last year, a table talking about. I don't have your experience, Scott. I came from that very white community, and I'm not sure how to navigate this.
Well, that's the beauty of now, because there are webinars available.
Okay.
You can pick up a book. There's so many opportunities to learn, and we all want to be lifelong learners. That's really
Yes.
And
important.
our office has also been offering community-wide workshops and reading discussions.
Okay.
And so that's something, I'll offer it up right now. If there's a group out there or some people who want to start something up, we can talk about implicit bias. We can talk about a lot of different things. We can talk about how to take action in this climate and
Yeah.
in this world. But we're a resource to the whole community and the region for that
That's
matter.
right.
So we want to educate our community.
Yeah.
We want Spokane to be a place where people of all identities would want to live and start up their life and career.
Yeah, that's the value that we bring is our differences
That's
to
right.
the table, you know.
And people always ask me, or I'm white, what can I do?
Yeah,
What you can do, what every person can do, is to help us break down systemic racism,
okay.
to call it out,
Yes.
to ask the question, to say who's not represented at this table, who's
Okay.
not being paid fairly, are women here, who is missing from this conversation. Breaking down systemic racism is the start of it all.
One of the things, and I'm just speaking from myself, and I clearly know I'm not perfect. Way,
As none of us are.
Nobody is.
but how do we keep the honest view of things and the dialogue when we're looking around the table? And I guess I don't want to jump into the point, okay, we're good here, but we don't have a Mexican American or whatever, because I'm hesitant to say we need you because of your color or your nationalities versus your skills and your character.
Well, it's about perspective. So the thing for us to all realize is when we have people from different backgrounds and different upbringings and, you know, all of those things, that they're bringing multiple ideas to the table.
Okay.
So when you have a pretty homogenous group of people, you're sometimes coming up with one idea or one set of ideas
Right.
instead of,
Right.
you know, I mean, the really brave person will be in a group meeting and challenge the status quo.
Yeah.
And say, hey, I don't agree with you. Respectfully, I don't agree with you. And I have some different ideas. And I think we're a little bit afraid. It's the nicety, you know, you've
Yeah.
heard of Spokane
We don't want to
nice.
offend
Spokane
anybody.
We don't
or
want to
whatever.
offend anybody.
Yeah.
So we're, you know, we all have to be nice about everything.
But
Well,
sometimes offending brings up good points, though.
and
too.
I mean, to be
in
honest,
learning
are they
of it.
really offending? Or is it just when somebody doesn't agree with your viewpoint,
Yeah.
that's offensive to you?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yes, I do. Yes, I do.
And what Kim has just spoken to, Fortune 500 companies, their research indicates the more diverse a room is, the
Yeah.
more diverse the board is,
Yes.
the better the result
Yeah.
and the
Yep.
product.
The
Yeah.
So
performance, yep.
diversity helps in every single way it possibly can. And when we talked about Spokane being pretty white,
Yeah.
I just want to acknowledge that our previous mayor, Mayor Condon, did have our office do a diversity strategic plan for the city of Spokane.
Okay, good.
And we thought that was just fantastic, that the city wanted to explore how can we maximize
Right.
on the diversity that's here.
Right.
Yeah.
And there's a lot here. The fact that we're sitting on Native American land
Yes.
is significant, and we should have acknowledged that, and I want to acknowledge that now.
Yeah.
And that learning has always occurred in these spaces. It's really important that we recognize who we are and whose we belong to, whose we are.
Any last comments? And I want to finish when we do finish here with how can people get more information? So we'll do that at the very end. But other things that I've talked a lot about myself, but I think I represent the majority of Spokane, okay, just by my look, okay, and color, obviously. But I think I've come across others that look like me and go, I don't know how to do this, Ken.
I don't want to be
You know?
bothered with this. I don't understand them. Why should I bother? And we don't even know how to talk to each other. That's another thing that I've noticed. We really have to understand the language of diversity. Because right now, people are afraid to say something because you
They
don't
get
want to
jumped
offend
on.
anybody.
Yeah, if it's the wrong thing,
That's a big
you
issue.
get called out on it.
But I think the thing is to start the conversation and to begin to talk to people and to get to know people beyond the surface.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
really significant.
I think humility is helpful too. I come from that space when I do diversity workshops and things, to just invite people into the conversation without judgment, because we all are on a spectrum of learning. So having some humility and putting others above yourself, getting to know people, having a sincere interest.
Yeah.
You know, hey, you're not like me, but I want to know more about you,
Yeah.
and to be curious and engaged with other people is really important.
I love and I've seen it done a couple of ways on Facebook the other day, and I passed it on, as we all do. 2 little girls in a market that had the same, I don't know, I'm not up on all of the little girl things, but they had the same dresses on, and it was, hey Mom, look, we're twins, black and white. Okay, I know from my granddaughter and her schoolmates that are not white as she is with the blonde hair and everything else. They don't see the differences. They see the alikes. Okay, so your comment about we've got to get to the young people is right
Early.
on.
Yeah.
We
Yes.
really do. We really do.
Yes.
Because they are told these things at a very young
Yeah.
age.
Taught.
Yeah, we learn the bad habits, don't
Yeah,
we?
that's right.
We really do.
That's
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. And I mean, I go back to the calling them Japs
Yeah.
during World War. Well, yes, we were bombed, and things happened. I get that. But you wouldn't say that today.
No, it's a slur.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. But I've seen the headlines in the LA Times growing up and stuff like that, the papers that were kept, and that's what we did then. We got to learn to do better.
Yeah. And I just think that there's a beauty and a brilliance in humankind.
Yes.
And that's what we need to look for and look at and to respect people.
Yeah.
Yeah. We have to move beyond
Yeah.
certain things.
And to know that we're all learning every day. So you may not know that a certain word is not the appropriate way to talk about something.
Yeah.
We work in a university environment, so community members don't always have access to
Right.
this type of education. And I learned that when I went out into the community
Okay.
with workshops.
Yeah.
And the tone of the workshops were completely different. I was, working with individuals who had never heard a term like microaggressions or things like that. So it's been really interesting and actually really a learning experience for me,
Yes.
to understand other perspectives. So in an ideal world, we're opening minds. We're not here to tell people what to think. We're here to say, could you step into the shoes of another person? Could you try to see their perspective? And that goes for any perspective.
And we're seeing a change. You look at the World War II veterans. They're going away every day. We're losing more and more. If you were to have a couple come on and sit here and talk about their war experience, my guess is the word Japanese or Japs might come up, okay? Because everybody got together to prevent the Germans and the Japanese and so forth. And they saw the atrocities at the time and so forth. And they don't forget the bad things that went on then on
But
both
people
sides.
can learn. And that's,
Yeah.
in my community workshops, I've seen people, in their 60s and 70s tell me, wow, I want to reflect on my life a little bit.
Yes.
To see if maybe racism has caused me to behave in certain ways. And that's a beautiful moment for me.
Yeah.
Because I'm not trying to make anybody feel bad. I just want them to acknowledge that we're all biased. We all
Yes.
have these tendencies.
We do.
And there are other
if we
perspectives.
if we can accept that we need to learn and that we're not perfect,
That's right.
Yeah.
we've learned a lot, haven't we?
We have. When you mentioned World War II, I just want to mention my dad, Charles Williams, who passed away in May, but he was a World War II veteran.
Okay.
And Daddy would still talk to us about those experiences and what he remembered at the age of 98 from having served. So I consider that was a treasure that we had in our lives.
Yes. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of our parents
Yeah.
didn't want to talk about
Right.
the war.
Right.
I've learned a lot, but not from my father,
Right.
who passed away
Yeah.
20 some years ago. But yeah, that generation didn't talk a lot about things. I wish they had. I think we would have learned some things. But anyway, how can people, speaking of learning, let's get everybody out there to learn more. Where can they go to start with? Website, obviously.
Yes,
Yeah.
definitely.
I know. I'm like, going, what?
Yeah.
So if they go to the EWU.edu website and then just put in the search engine diversity and inclusion, they'll find our website.
That's
we have
simple.
tons. We have all of our contact information. They can get a hold of Dr. Clarke or me.
Okay.
There's resources. There's just opportunities. Most of our events on campus where we do training or workshops are open to the public.
Yeah.
Because we are a public university. So, for example, on March 30th, I'm facilitating a conversation on generations. So mutual mentorship
That'll be great.
and the generations in organizations and how we interact between the younger generations
Yeah.
and the older generations. It's a really great conversation. And that is a piece of diversity diversity. And so,
Yes.
if the public is interested in that, they certainly can get a hold of us. We have a general email that is diversity and inclusion.
And someone monitors that.
Yep.
And,
Yes.
.ewu.edu, or I'll give my email. I'm fine with that. kdavis2@ewu.edu. And I invite people to reach out if you want to hear about community offerings, or you want to come to one of our events on campus, where we'd love to have the community involved.
And you're always welcome. Everybody is always
yeah,
welcome.
I'm going to crash a couple of things and come out.
We'll be waiting on you as soon as we open up.
We expect to
Yeah.
open
We
in
wanna
fall,
see
and
you.
we actually are launching a Center for Inclusive Excellence, which will be a training and development space.
Okay.
And so we absolutely would love to see people, stopping by to check out what we're doing.
Yeah. Selfishly, I'd like to learn more.
Good.
But at the same time, maybe some of the younger people can learn something from an old 75-year-old.
That's right. That's the that's the idea.
I've had young people here, and one of them is Generation Z. He's not here anymore. But, well, Kent, we're a whole different generation. Yes, but you do still need to pick up the phone and call someone. You can't just email them all the time and so forth. And maybe there are some things you can learn from us old guys.
Yeah, that's
Very definitely.
Yeah.
That's the point of our workshop on Tuesday, because it's called
Generations, yes.
mutual mentorship.
Yeah.
And so it's about us learning from each other. And a movie that's really good is called The Internship.
Okay.
Robert De Niro and Anne Hathaway. And I assumed that Anne Hathaway was the intern. Turns out she's the company owner, and De Niro's the intern. It's a fantastic movie.
I remember that's been out for a couple of years, I think.
Yeah.
I remember the name when you
One
say
of my
that.
favorites.
Okay, I'm going to have to go. You can get everything online these days.
You
so,
sure can.
Yeah.
And I want to encourage everybody to stay tuned. On April 8th, we're hosting an event entitled The Awakening.
Okay.
And it will be a virtual discussion with a faculty and a student panel talking about culture in today's society.
Yeah.
So it should be very, very enlightening.
Okay. How can people get more information about that?
They can just email
Email us.
kdavis2@ewu.edu.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's that email thing. It's that Zoom thing. It's welcome to the 21st century, right?
Yeah, makes
That's
it
right.
a lot more accessible for
Yeah.
the community to
Yeah.
participate.
Yeah, good. Thank you, ladies,
Thank
for
you.
being here. I learned a lot, okay?
Thank you.
And we'll have you back, because this is an important topic, especially in such a white community.
Yeah.
Okay, and I'm aware of that, and I think a lot of my colleagues are, but I see good things happening from people of all kinds of backgrounds here, and they're taking leadership roles and so forth, and we are all better off when that happens.
Yeah.
Spokane is a great place, and Eastern Washington University is a fantastic place.
I have come to learn that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. As a critic often in the past of higher education, professors and all of that who, learn from a book and teach from a book, I have learned so much.
Good.
And I appreciate that. Selfishly, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And I hope people have too. Thanks for watching,
Thank you.
everybody, on Experts at EWU. Watch next time. Thank you.